back, relax, and let's have a chapter chat. I'm your host, Jessica Foster, and I am so excited to welcome author Loretta Ellsworth. She started out in young adult fiction and has now transitioned into historical fiction. So great to have you here, Loretta.
Thank you, Jessica. It's great to be here.
And you have a brand new book that has just come out, The Jilted Countess. Tell us a little bit about this book because I found it fascinating.
Thank you. So did I. The whole idea of this book was just something that really spoke to me. And I spent about 10 years writing it and researching it. About 10 years ago, there was an article in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune newspaper by Kurt Brown. And he does these little snippets about local Minnesota things. And someone had sent him a newspaper that they found in their attic from 1948. And in it was an article, a story about this Hungarian countess who came to Minnesota to marry her fiancé, who she'd met after the war in Europe. Her family had lost everything in the war. And so when she met this soldier from Minnesota, she fell in love with him, and he asked her to marry him and moved to the United States. And she was grateful for that opportunity and wanted to move here. But when she finally got here, it took a couple of years to get her visa and the money and everything that she needed to come. When she finally arrived, she discovered that he'd just recently married someone else. So she was heartbroken, of course, and she really wanted to stay in the U.S. because she would be deported back to Hungary in less than 2 weeks, which was under communist control, and she didn't want to go back. But, she only had 2 weeks in which to marry someone. So she had approached another newspaper man in 1948, Cedric Adams at the Minneapolis Star newspaper, and told him her story. And he had put a picture of her with a fake name in the newspaper and asked if any returning GIs wanted to help this woman out by offering to marry her. And in less than 2 weeks, she received almost 1,800 offers of marriage.
Wow.
Right. I know. Wow. And in the 2015 article that Kurt Brown had written, he wondered if anyone knew what had happened to this woman, because in those 2 weeks she had went on a few dates, married someone, and was never heard from again. They kind of disappeared. But unfortunately, no one responded to his article in 2015, and I was just fascinated with this idea of a Hungarian countess assimilating into life here. It was a small town that she settled in, and they said, but they didn't say where.
Was it hard to get others interested in this idea, or was it pretty easy?
It was very easy to get people interested in this idea because she was kind of the first bachelorette, really.
Yes.
And it's just a fascinating idea of someone coming and not, just not knowing what happened to her and, wondering.
And so it took you 10 years to research and write it, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that process. How much time did you spend researching, and then how much time did you spend writing?
Well, it was kind of a combination of both. I used the newspaper articles to write, to formulate the story that I knew, the actual story. So I had some substance there, which I was able to draw upon. And that part was easier. But then I had to decide where I would have her live, how her life would be if she ever encountered her fiancé again, that she, who had jilted her, and what her life would be like, and how she would, fit into it. I had her in a small Minnesota town, so.
And I think that people are really going to enjoy this a lot just because, again, you have that bachelorette side to it. And then the historical fiction. I have become such a lover of historical fiction.
Oh, I do too. Yes. I read a great deal of historical fiction myself.
You were telling me that you started out in young adult fiction and have transitioned over. Tell me a little bit about that transition.
Okay, so, well, when I first started writing, I was a middle school teacher. And my first book actually was The Shrouding Woman. Uh, it's also historical fiction, and it's set in the 1800s. And it was also inspired by a newspaper article, actually, that I read about shrouding women who would prepare bodies for burial. And this is before we had undertakers or funeral homes, and it's a very old custom. And so that was my first book. And then I wrote 3 other young adult novels. And when I first started writing, I thought I might write for adults, but the voices that I heard every time I sat down to write were these younger voices, and I think it's because I was teaching middle school. So those are the voices that came out.
I have a daughter who is middle school age right now. And do you love that age group? Because I didn't know how much I would love this stage, but I love it.
I do too. I really enjoyed teaching that age group. And you know, my, actually in middle school, there's drama every day. So so it kind of, it's there are always stories, there are always, so it was very easy for me to relate to that age group. Um, and I really enjoyed writing for them. But then I wrote one story that I thought was going to be young adult, and it went back and forth in time, and it was called Stars Over Clear Lake. And because it transcended time, it went back and forth in time, it showed her as an adult as well as a teen. And so it became my first adult novel. And I really enjoyed that. And that led to my next historical fiction book, which was The French Winemaker's Daughter, which was also historical fiction. And that came out last December, just a year ago, actually.
Yeah, so back to back. So you had one that released last year and then this year. What does it
Right.
feel like after working on something for 10 years?
I think this is one of my most exciting moments because of the fact that I have worked on this book for so long. And it's kind of like your first book in a way. My first book took me years and years to write and get published because I was learning my craft and learning about the publishing business and just kind of breaking in. And so that took me many years. So this almost feels like my first book again because it's taken 10 years. And I love the fact that it's based on a true story as well. And I'm hoping that, I actually purchased the rights to the articles that were published in 1948. I spent a great deal of time researching at the Minnesota History Center trying to find her. And I couldn't find her because I didn't have a name or anything. I looked in the marriage records and everything for those dates, for any Hungarian sounding name, but I didn't find her. But I do have in my author's notes, I have a picture of the real Countess. And I'm hoping that someone will see it and say, hey, that's my mom or my grandmother, or find out what really happened to her.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Just to know how things really worked out. Right.
Exactly. And that's what I love about history is because it is like putting together a puzzle.
It is. Very much so.
So when you taught middle school, what did you teach?
I taught Spanish, actually.
How did that prepare you for what you're doing now?
Just, maybe perhaps international, understanding of different cultures and that type of thing. I did go back to school and get my master's in writing for children.
And tell me a little bit about that process. Do you feel like if you want to become an author, do you feel like you should go and get a master's in that? Or is it kind of a lot of trial and error and just trying to master your craft by doing?
Both ways work. You can, a lot of people just are great readers, and it is trial and error for them. They, they're able to master their craft that way. A lot of people, I have a whole shelf full of books on the craft of writing. I love exploring the process of it, and The only reason I really wanted to go back to school for my master's was because I had already been published with my first book, The Shrouding Woman, but I wanted to understand the process and things that I was doing intuitively. I wanted to do purposefully. So I wanted to understand craft in that way. So, and that helped me a great deal. Plus, the community was also really a, a wonderful benefit of going into a master's program.
And probably as a teacher, you love being a lifelong learner, so it just comes naturally to you.
Right, I do. Right. hmm That's as well.
So now, as an author, tell me a little bit about what your days look like. Do you write every single day?
Not every single day. I do try to write every day, but I don't. When I was writing my first few books and I was teaching, uh, I had 4 children of my own. And so I would write, at soccer practices, before school, sometimes late at night, just any moment that I could fit in, maybe even during a boring teacher meeting or something. But I would just, any moment that I could find. And now I have the freedom to write when I want. But I noticed that although I still only have so much creative energy, I think, per day. So I don't really get any more writing done than I did when I was much younger. And it could be my age too, as well.
Well, I've said this before on this podcast that busy people get more done.
I think, you, especially when you're first driven to get that book out, to finish that book and do that, it does give you a great sense of, accomplishment to do something like that, even when you're busy, and I know most authors a lot of them have other jobs, they have children, they have very busy schedules. So, it's amazing that anybody gets any writing done.
And it can be difficult to get that break and to get in
Yeah,
with a publishing house.
it is. It is. It takes a lot of hard work and persistence in finding a literary agent, and a publisher and someone who, wants to take a risk with your book and feels, champions it for you.
What would you say to all those aspiring authors out there?
Number one is learn your craft because I think it's important um, to do that. So many people have wonderful ideas, but it's the execution. So, you do have to learn your craft, learn about different ways to make a story better, to add tension, look at theme, just even, how to make a flashback work, things like that are things that everyone should learn. And then, you know, keep working on it. Revision is essential to, your book, making it the best that it can be before you send it out.
And I know about that revision process as a journalist. We never put something on the air without multiple layers of people looking at it, editing not only the writing, but also the video. It really is a team effort. I know with journalism, getting a report out there, that's a team effort. And books, even though your name is on the front cover, this is a team effort.
It is. It's multiple people help with this. With my previous book, The French Winemaker's Daughter, it's set in France, and so that's a book that I needed. I had a French copy editor as well as an American copy editor. Um, you know, I had a lot of input. My editor as well. Uh, it concerns a girl who's Jewish, and my editor is Jewish, and so all of those things helped. They gave me so much input into this book, and it really helped it a lot.
Do you feel like the publishing industry has changed a lot from when you first started?
I think it's changed in that, and I don't know if, I used to talk to other authors who were with one publishing house for their entire career. And that doesn't happen quite so much anymore. I've been published by 4 different publishers. So, you know, I think, uh, it's what a publishing house and an editor, what they're focusing on in the moment. So sometimes it changes. Sometimes you have to go to different places to find the best home for your book.
And do you have a favorite book that you've written?
I always say it's the book that I'm writing right now.
That's the one that's fresh on your mind, the one that you're thinking about all the time.
I always tell writers to write what you dream about all the time that you can't stop thinking about. Those are the stories that really speak to you.
Oh, that's great advice. And I've actually never heard anyone say it like that, but I love that.
Oh, thanks.
Do you ever think that you'll venture into any other genre?
Well, I did actually during COVID. I have grandchildren and I wasn't able to see them except on FaceTime. And so I wrote a picture book called
Oh,
Tangle Knot.
oh, that's
And
adorable.
thank you. And that was my first picture book. And I wrote it for my grandkids because I really miss them. And I was very lucky that it was picked up and published. And the illustrator did a wonderful job. And that's another genre that I had never uh, tried much before. And it was really, it's its own, it's its own beast, basically. It's much more difficult than it appears to be.
I've talked to a lot of authors who this is their second career and they've started writing later in life. Did you always have a desire to do it, but it just kind of got put on the back burner?
I always had an interest in it. I even as I was teaching, I wrote articles for magazines, and I was lucky that a few of them were published. And that led me to take some classes at the Loft Literary Center in Minneapolis on writing. And I think one thing sort of led to another, but I always had that interest from the very beginning. And it, but wasn't something that I ever thought of as a possible career. And now I go into schools and talk to students and I participate in young author conferences around the state. And I talk to them about, you know, this is something that you can do that can be a career for you. And I think if someone had told me that when I was younger, I might have actually considered it as a possible career choice.
Well, I have to tell you that I've always loved to write. When I was a little girl, I would write little short stories, and that
Mhm.
transitioned into being a journalist because I have to write every day for that. But it's a different type of writing than fiction. And so one of my life goals is to write a fiction book, and I actually just started working on it.
Oh, right. That's amazing. That's great.
What I've realized is that, okay, I don't have like a set of facts to work from to craft this story or a set of interviews to work from to craft the story, which is very different than what I do when I craft a story for a news report. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Like, you actually, when you're writing a fiction book, you make up all of those things.
Exactly. And, I would say push through, keep pushing through. Don't, and I think as a journalist, you probably have that tendency to be a little bit of a perfectionist too.
Uh huh. Yes.
and, and just push through to the end until you have a complete draft and you could look at it then and say, here's what I have and work from that. Hmm.
I'm also used to writing very short, because we write for the ear instead of writing for the eyes. It really is just a different craft.
It is a different craft. But, I've read a lot of books that have really short chapters lately, and it was kind of fun reading, very short chapters too. So that's, even you don't have to have really long chapters. There are different ways of writing and different,
Well, people's attention spans, I think that people struggle with that
Right.
these days, right?
Some of those are better for people with shorter attention spans too.
True, true. Well, let's get back to the Jilted Countess. And what do you hope that readers get out of this book?
Well, I hope that they will see, a story about someone who, despite her grief and heartache, was determined to make a life for herself. And I'm always impressed. I read a lot of books about World War II, and I'm always impressed by the resilience of characters, and real people who survived World War II. Holocaust survivors, people like that who go on and have such fulfilling lives afterwards. That takes such strength and resilience. And so, I hope that people are, first of all, enjoy the story. And secondly, just really like, the fact that of how she acclimates to the United States. And hopefully this will, touch some people as well, and they'll enjoy it.
Well, I think that it will touch some people because I know that I have enjoyed reading The Jilted Countess. So I just encourage everyone, pick it up, learn a little something new. And Loretta, thank you so much for spending some time with us. It's been lovely. And we hope everyone has a great day. Happy reading, everyone. You've been listening to Chapter Chat. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Happy reading.